I just started the recording.
Your leaders.
What are you doing? On a Teams meeting. Huh? We're on a Teams meeting about.
All right, thanks everyone. I think we are good to go ahead and get started. I will kick it over to Elizabeth.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome and happy Thursday. I'd like to start out by introducing myself to you all. My name is Elizabeth Chittister, and I am the new LTPT coordinator for our office. This is my 4th week on the job, so definitely still getting to learn things and get to know everybody. We've been to a couple LTPT meetings so far. They've gone great, and I'm excited to work with all of you and get to know you better. So for our meeting so far, we'll just do a couple housekeeping items on the same note of me taking over the LTPT coordinator role. We are going to have to switch over the meeting permissions, so you might get a couple emails about that as we switch over the meeting, but we will try to minimize that as much as possible just to give you a heads up that you might get a little bit of that. And then our second announcement, so tentatively our 2025 Broadband Summit is going to be held September 11th through the 12th at the Renaissance Hotel in Orlando. Just a reminder, we do LTPT specific events at the summit, such as like a panel that's closed door. I heard that we received a lot of really good feedback about that last year. And so we will be having that again. Highly encourage participation and as many people to come as we can get to. And we do pay for one of the LTPT members to come. We will pay for you to come and your hotel, and we'll communicate more details about that as we get closer to the summit. But just wanted to give a heads up, have that on your calendars as we get closer to September. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
September 11th is a hard day for counties because we usually recognize what happened on 9/11. So is it going to be in the afternoon or in the morning?
I believe it starts in the morning, Jacob, is that right?
It'll be all day in Orlando. We did it on that date last year as well. Generally, our summit aligns with the Workforce Summit, which is earlier in the week, and then we transition over to our summit for attendees of that one. And that's, like I said, that's what we've handled the last two, and that's was the idea going forward with this one as well. So like I said, it'll be all day. If you have other obligations, totally free to kind of step in and out as is available. But like I said, it'll be all day.
Yeah, and does anyone have anything else to add from my team about the Broadband Summit?
Yeah, Elizabeth, this is Paul Lisbon. Thank you. So last year we had 6 of the LTPT members that committed to going to the summit. So we reserved the rooms and paid for them, and then they did not show up. So we had to pay for those rooms in their absence. So this year we're going to put a $50 deposit. That'll cover the food and stuff. So if you don't show up, you're going to forfeit that $50. If you do show up, you'll get a refund as soon as you check in. So I just want to make it clear that once you commit yourself to this, it's very important that you either show up or have an alternate in advance, because we can change the name in the reservation. But we're paying for those with a purchase order. So those are prepaid well in advance. So I just need to make sure that you understand that if you commit to attend, then you need to be there. Otherwise, you're going to forfeit a $50 deposit if you don't have somebody to go in your place. That somebody also has to be a representative of your LTPT. So if you have any questions, please ask them. If not, I will turn it back over to Elizabeth.
And I'll chime in with one other caveat. I know this is an issue we've ran into in the past. We cannot pay for elected officials. They have to be state employees or not state employees, local employees or LTPT members or whatever. But like I said, we cannot pay for elected officials room.
Alrighty, thank you, Jacob. Does anyone have any questions about the summit before we move on? Alrighty, well, we are really looking forward to that and hope as many of you can attend as possible. I will turn things over to Jacob for the bead update.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So we don't have a ton of updates for BEAD. We are sort of waiting, I think, for the federal government to kind of resolve what's going on with them. I will tell you that we're watching today. The NTIA Assistant Secretary is up in her confirmation hearing before the Senate Commerce Committee. That'll be at 2:15 today, and you can watch that live on the Senate Commerce website. So I will be doing that, and we'll see if we can get maybe some information or insights about the kind of futures of the BEAD program and digital capacity, and see what they're thinking about that. So like I said, but until that gets resolved and until we had been under the impression that we were supposed to get an update from Secretary Lutnick over the Department of Commerce about sort of an overall update of BEAD, that he was going to do a deep dive in the program and kind of provide some recommendations. We haven't gotten that yet, so that's another thing, like I said, that we're kind of waiting for. I'll also tell you that our challenge process, which we submitted our data to the NTIA before the holidays, we have not received feedback on that yet. I assume that will sort of come once the leadership sort of gets sorted out there. But like I said, we're still waiting on challenge process curing before we can move forward with BEAD locations and all that type of stuff. So like I said, not a huge update, but given that things are moving there in terms of the leadership, I think we're anticipating hearing some more information, some more guidance, and I'll repeat what we've said in the past. From a big picture perspective, we're not anticipating changes. The stuff that we've published and posted in our initial proposals and in our digital adoption and use plan, we're still sticking to that. We're still assuming that we're going to be able to handle things the way that we said we would. And like I said, we're anticipating that the rules changes will make it more streamlined, more quick, easier for us to deploy this money quickly, as opposed to hamstringing us. So like I said, that's how we're operating. I'll let you know once we get some more information about it. Like I said, I'll be paying attention to the way the committee hearing goes today. But that's where we're at with BEAD. I know some people have reached out. We're sort of approaching the timelines that we were talking about for opening digital capacity and opening BEAD workforce. So like I said, tentatively, we're pushing these timelines back a little bit until that sort of all gets resolved. But like I said, we are big picture perspective. We're not going to be changing too much as far as we understand. I do see a hand. Joe, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, Jacob, how are you? Yeah, we are seeing things starting to break the logjam. I hope Assistant Secretary Ross, I believe, gets approved. I think once those the Secretary and the Assistant Secretary get their sea legs, I think things will move. We have seen announcements from your Rural Utilities Service, for example, that they have already removed all the DEI obligations, simplifying it for grantor agencies. I expect that will happen very shortly. And simplify execution of programs when that happens. So, but we're seeing that logjam break just in the last week or so.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to hear. Like you said, breaking the logjam, making it easier, removing, things that are going to hold up, potential progress. So, like I said, good to hear that. And again, we are anticipating it'll go smoothly the way we've planned. Yes, sir, Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, Jacob, on your digital capacity grant, I know we pushed back on that a little bit. What will be the timeline you think once you go ahead and make that?
So our anticipation is a 30-day window whenever we do open it. Like I said, we're waiting for how that ends up getting resolved in terms of the rules changes. But depending on, like Joe said, as how long it takes them to get their sea legs and sort of get comfortable and understand the program, potentially late April, early May, but it could be even earlier, like I said, depending on when we get that approval from the federal government.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions regarding BEAD or anything else? Okay, seeing none, I will pass it over to Paul to discuss some permitting issues.
Yeah, once again, good morning, everybody. So we've been working with the Florida Association of Counties and some of the counties directly to try to understand what the permitting requirements are for wireline or cable across rights of way. Also working with the railroads to try to get what their requirements are so we can put together a list and post it to our website of who to contact, what the costs are going to be, what the timeframes are going to be. Almost have the railroads completed. The counties are a little bit different. Of course, there's only 27 railroads and there's 67 counties. So any assistance that you can provide to us, if you can provide the permit contact name for utility permits, and the name and a contact, either an email or a telephone number to Elizabeth so that we can make contact directly with them, that would be fantastic. I know that every county is different. There are some counties that require, a bond or deposit. Some are cash deposits, some are bonds. So we want to try to figure out what all of those requirements are so that we can probably do a master agreement, and the state will look at the possibility of those instead of the internet service providers having to go out and post a $250,000 cash deposit so that it takes money away from the projects when we do that. So any information that you can give us on your county permitting person for utilities or rights of way, whichever you call it in your county, that would be fantastic. And if you could provide that information to Elizabeth, it will help us immensely in trying to get through all the counties and try to post whatever requirements are. I know that most of the providers that we use are pretty familiar with Florida, but because this is open, we may have a lot of other providers that don't already provide service in Florida. In order to not eliminate their participation, we want to make sure that they have all the information they can to give us the best estimate proposal they possibly can. So with that being said, no questions. I'll turn it back over to Elizabeth.
I believe we did have a raised hand. Archie, did you want to go ahead with your question?
Sure, thanks. Good morning, everyone. So I just listened to what you're saying about the permitting, but in a lot of counties, then the cities are the one that's responsible for some of those permitting. So you probably have to figure that part of it out. Counties only would be in unincorporated, so a lot of this would fall under the cities. So you may want to look into that also.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I'm not sure I'm ready to contact 440 municipalities. That's the number of cities that were participating in our previous two programs. So we'll start with the counties, and then as we get a finalization for our challenge process, we'll know where all of those locations are going to be, and it will narrow that pool of cities and counties down a little bit because we've already established what our service areas are going to be. So we'll know what municipalities, towns, counties, unincorporated areas are located in those service areas. Trying to do the same thing on the federal side.
Mm-hmm.
We've made a recommendation to just do a blanket categorically excluded thing for wireline service and for fixed wireless infrastructure. Right now, their category exclusions are in their streamlined form are between 3 to 6 months for approval. And that's quite a delay in a 4-year project. So we're working all of those from all the angles. I suspect some of that stuff will get streamlined when the Secretary of Commerce is able to to get with his new assistant secretary, and they can flush all of those things out, and they get the new bead information out to us. That's probably another 2 weeks away. I think NTIA is also anticipating that some of those things are going to go away, just like with the RDOF program, where they've eliminated some of those DEI requirements in the type of workforce you can use. I expect those same things will take place in BEAD. But until we have firm word one way or another, there's nothing we can do. We've already got kind of a draft of our agreement. And some of that's obviously going to have to be adjusted once we find out what the final word's going to be on the requirements for the program moving forward. But thanks for that information. I appreciate it.
Alrighty, I don't see anything in the chat or any hands raised. Does anyone have any more questions regarding permitting? All right, that concludes our announcements. So before we move over to the LTPT only section of the call, does anybody have any questions or things that they'd like to discuss? Yes, Mr. Harvey.
Elizabeth, can you send out your email to us? I just sent Jacob an email asking for that and putting our people there, and we can help you with our cities if that becomes like in Putnam County, there's 5 municipalities, but we do the permitting for 3 of those. So it wouldn't be that big of a lift for us to be able to, because most of them are on our LPT, our local technology planning teams anyway. So, we can get you contact information, but if you can send me yours or send them out to everybody, we have that list, so we can help you through the association and we can get all that information to you. Okay.
I did put her email in the chat, like I said, but I'm happy to throw to reply to your email with her contact information as well. So yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll definitely get that sent out and do appreciate any contacts that you have. Does anybody have anything else?
I did want to just jump in real quick and sort of address some of the bills we've seen filed during this legislative session. In case any of you guys have seen any of those or have any questions about it, I'm happy to discuss them. But the bills we're tracking, there's a couple that deal with broadband. Obviously, the Senate President's big bill about rural prosperity, that is, we're written into that one. It's not a huge lift for our office. It changes our reporting requirements to the legislature a little bit and asks us to interact with their rural liaisons. So if you are an LTPT lead in a rural area, you'll probably be interacting with the rural liaisons that they're funding through that bill. So like I said, just something to keep in mind. I don't think it should be a big ask. I think it'll just be, back and forth. So it shouldn't be too bad. But we've also seen a couple other bills. We've seen something similar to what was filed last year that deals with tax exemptions for service providers that are purchasing hardware with our grant funds. So, obviously it's a good thing, makes the taxes go a little further. That doesn't have a House companion, but like I said, we're still tracking that. We're paying attention to that one. There was a bill for broadband enabled kind of agricultural equipment that our office would fund a grant program for that. That hasn't moved, but that's I think something kind of interesting that we're paying attention to as well. Other than that, I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the Florida Telecommunications Relay, which is an organization that provides devices and services for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. Their statute is getting a revamp to kind of include more broadband enabled technologies, whereas before it was sort of more phone based. So that's interesting. We've interacted with them. They helped us with our digital adoption and use plan. So like I said, that's something we're paying attention to as well. But other than that, there's the last thing I think we're sort of looking at is something dealing with utility relocations that would shift the burden for cost for the utility relocations from a service provider to the local government that owns the right of way if they ask the service provider to make that utility relocation request. So that's basically everything, like I said, that we're paying attention to this session. Nothing, I think, earth-shattering in the broadband space. Happy to answer any questions about it if you guys are curious, or if you guys have anything that you flagged that you want us to be aware of. But like I said, that's everything I got from a legislative update. We're at day 23 of 60 in session this year. So like I said, we will be continuing to pay attention, see if there's anything late filed, anything that gets attached to any other things. But like I said, looking at a smooth landing, I think, so far this year in session.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Does anyone have anything else? Oh, perfect. We can definitely get those bill numbers in the chat for you, Mr. Lewis. With that, we're gonna ask any non-LTPT people to step off, and we'll go ahead and proceed, give them a second, and then proceed with the LTPT only section of the call. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks. Bye.
Alrighty, we'll go ahead with our LTPT section of the call and just turn the time over to you guys. Does anyone have any updates or achievements, just any announcements they would like to share? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
Hey there, Sam Roberts, City of Jacksonville. I will be actually leaving the City of Jacksonville as of this Friday, so it's been great working with everybody. Florida Commerce and everybody on the broadband team has been fantastic. And I'll be turning it over to another city official, so I'll probably get in contact with you, Elizabeth, about transferring kind of ownership and administration of the Duval County team over to another member of our staff. So it's been great, but thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much. And I think most of you probably got an email from me earlier this week, last week, about contacts. So if there is anyone that you need to add as like an alternative contact, or they're not getting our meeting invites, please let us know so we can make sure. I know some of the city and county servers block our emails, so it's hard to get those invites out, but definitely we appreciate you guys letting us know any contact information that needs to be updated. Yeah, Mr. Murray.
Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome. Just a quick question. In the BEAD program, we talked about non-deployment funds and specifically the workforce. Is there any indication when those will go out the door?
So I think we had anticipated March, and then, like I said, with the kind of shakeup at the top of the federal government, we're moving the timelines back a little bit. I'll tell you, we're still doing the work we were doing before. We're developing both a competitive application for educational institutions and nonprofits and workforce boards, as well as an RFA for career source to engage in apprenticeships, on-the-job training, work-based learning, and things like that. Like I said, we are making a lot of really good progress on that. So we don't have a specific update for you, like I said, but we are making progress. We're doing really well. It's a big priority of our secretary and governor. So like I said, once we get, I think, a little bit more information from the federal government about how it'll all shake out, we'll be able to move forward specifically, but we're kind of in a holding pattern while we wait to sort of see how all that resolves.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Jacob, let me add to that. So we are kind of locked into a specific time frame. We have to have all of this stuff done by November 13th. By November 13th of this year. And we have to build a final proposal and all that. So we've got to start it fairly soon. We're still moving forward with our applications. We've got those developed. We're getting our website prepared, all the architecture's there. We are going to have a pre-registration period that'll probably be open in the next 2 weeks, give or take, so that you can participate in all these programs. And that registration will only require you to provide the information necessary to do an agreement. If you get an award, it'll be the name of the entity, the contact person, a secondary contact person, your unique entity identifier, your tax ID, and a provider ID if you are an internet service provider or if you're doing broadband deployment. There's about 10 questions in there, and all of that information, once it's entered in there, it allows you to add different contact people as well as secondary or tertiary. And when you do an application, when we open an application, if you're registered, you'll get an invite to that. Obviously, we'll have a press release and we'll do a blast email through our subscriber account, but it will pre-populate any application that you do with the information that you've already provided. So you won't have to do all of that again. It's to allow us the opportunity to make sure that you are registered with sam.gov to get a unique entity identifier, making sure that if you're a provider, that you have a provider ID and that your tax ID meshes with what the IRS says. So it'll give us an opportunity to kind of vet all of the information in advance, so it won't take so long to do it after the fact. If you have already submitted, if you've already had an award, all of that information will be there already. So when you go to that site, you'll be able to edit any of the information that is already there. If you have not registered in the past, you'll have the opportunity to register. That information will come to us once you submit it, and we'll do a quick review to make sure that the UEI is there and the provider ID is there and your tax ID is there and the contact information is appropriate. In other words, there's a full telephone number there and a full email address. And then within 5 days, you'll get a reply back where that will become live. So you'll be registered and ready to go. We're still looking at the end of April. Yeah, we're still looking at the end of April the end of April or early May to get these applications out there again, because we're restricted by the time that we have to get all these applications out, scored, awards issued and approved, and then we'll have provisional for the regular deployment programs, but the workforce development stuff can move forward with an approval of our program officer, and that should be pretty quick.
All righty, thank you for that, Paul. I think we have another a hand raised. Caesar, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Paul, can I ask, are there going to be limitations on who can participate in that process? I know the registration on the website and then so forth and so on. Are there going to be limitations on who can participate in each of the different verticals of funding that will become available?
No, so the eligibility requirements will be posted on there, but nonprofits are part of it. Municipalities are part of it, regular providers, learning institutions, state colleges, universities, but the list of eligible applicants will be there. You'll all fill out the same registration, and there's a drop down for you to check to see which programs you'd like to participate in so that we have advance notice. It won't restrict you at all. We can change that at any point in time. We're trying to get a feel for how many applicants we might have for any one of the programs. So you put your name and all that other information in there, and then there'll be a drop down. If you want to participate in workforce development, fine. If you want to participate in deployment projects, that's fine. I think there's 8 different categories that you can include, and you can check one or all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. I'll add to that and just say we are looking to include more than exclude. If you are providing services, education, wraparound services, whatever it is, whatever your need is, we are receptive to, like I said, figuring out a way to make it work. So again, we're not trying to bamboozle anyone or say, get to the end of the funding period, day 29 of the 30-day window, and say, oh, by the way, you're ineligible. So like I said, if you have a question, please reach out specifically if you're eligible or whatever. But like I said, we are looking to get anybody included who's trying to participate.
All righty, and does anyone have any more questions on that or things that they just want to share or announce? I will give a little shout out to DeSoto County. I'm not sure if they're on here still, but we were able to attend their LTPT meeting on Teams last week, and it was great. They're looking to kind of re-stand up their team, and Jacob and I were very impressed with their efforts and the ISP participation that they discussed in the meeting. Yeah, Ethan, go ahead.
This is Ethan Long from Alachua County. Just have a question for, I guess, Jacob, the mapping tool that you've talked about. Is there a timeline for that coming out?
So we will, that'll come out concurrently, I think, with capacity once we sort of move forward with our plans for that. But we're sort of polishing that, getting that kind of finalized in terms of the way that we use that to support the grant. So like I said, once you hear more about capacity, you'll hear more about that mapping tool. But yes, we are still working on that, and we will let you know when we can release it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kyle, go ahead. Okay, do we have any other questions or anything else?
I'm sorry, Jacob, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about watching at 2:15 this afternoon. Can you tell me where exactly we should go to be able to watch that?
Yes.
NCLA Assistant Secretary.
So so Senate Commerce's website has like a live feed. I'll put the link to that in the chat, but the Senate Commerce website has a live feed, and I'll tell you they're meeting twice today. So I think they're meeting now about that plane crash in DC a couple months ago, and then they'll meet at 2:15. So if you tune in now, like I said, you might be confused, but the at 2:15 they'll have the hearing for the NTIA secretary. There's the link. I just put it in the chat. It's commerce.senate.gov.
Perfect.
All right, do we have anything else? Okay, I'll go ahead and stop recording. It looks like our next meeting is going to be April 17th. Like I said, we're going to have to change over a little bit of the meeting permission, so you might get an extra couple emails, but we will try to minimize that. And thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you next month.